from principals and teachers, their school-based curriculum and improvement work. So the purpose for us when we are collaborating with these schools, we have also other schools, but in this case there are five, and the first purpose is more general, to see how local school actors understand and handle the parallel process of external pressure on the one hand, and the other hand, the local school-based improvement work. And within this tension, we are interested in seeing how principals and teachers understand what has been talked about here before, the focus for the improvement work. How do they handle these selection of areas within the curriculum, and at the same time their own learning during the process. So we're trying to use, and I show you later here, a concept of learning capital to understand the school's capacity building. I come back to that. So if we look at the context of school improvement work in Sweden, we can see these increasing focus on students' academic achievement and school results. And actually, if you had your attention before today, you could see the decline of Swedish school results since, I think, 10 years now. And it's a great debate in Sweden at the moment of this. And as late as last week, I think OECD came with a special report for Sweden. It was, you could say, rather negative on the Swedish school system. So that's a great pressure at the moment, and the politicians have taken some steps, a lot of reform initiatives the last years, with aim to improve achievements for all students. Also the equality or equity between schools. And we have now also regulations in the Act for schools to work with school improvement and local curriculum innovation based on scientific knowledge and proven experience. And that's an area of interest for me and my colleagues. So you can say there is an active space for local school actors to make decisions in the daily curriculum and improvement work. So what we see also is increasing interest in both the what and the how question. The what question is about students' learning and achievement in focused curriculum areas like Swedish, maths, English, and so on. And there are also this what question is also about teachers and principals' learning, important issues in school improvement, and not at least teaching qualities. And I thank you to Mr. Kyriakidis for your dynamic approach. We have used it a lot in Sweden to find these teaching qualities. And when we made our narrative reviews, we have seen the need of models for different teaching qualities to see what leads to good student achievement. But on the other hand, it's a process of learning for all parts, and that's on the other side here. What can you do within a school or within collaboration between schools? And we see that systematic data collecting and analysis of data on student and teacher learning and teaching qualities is important. And also the discussions, the dialogue between teachers about teaching and learning is important. And also research talk about the need of transparency in planning, implementation and evaluation of teaching. And that, I would say, in Sweden we have had over the years a rather autonomous teacher workforce, not so much of collaboration or collegial evaluation. But now, the last 5-10 years, we have seen a big attention on these research reviews, especially John Hattie, maybe you have heard of this researcher, but also from the UK and other researchers around the world, and also an attention on that side, what's going on in the process of school improvement. So if you condense this, you can maybe say, like Linda Darling-Hammond, an American researcher, evidence shows that schools in which teachers act in collaborative settings to deeply examine teaching and learning, and then discuss effective instructional practices, show academic results for students more quickly than schools that do not. So I think that's an important conclusion about what's important to focus in your school improvement work. And I'm going to show later on what the teachers and the principals say about this. But some other facts about what school improvement research shows. The local and school-based learning, supported by, for example, literature reading and data collection from teaching and learning, is important. But also processes including self-evaluation and investigations in school practice, supported by different types of data, official data, locally produced data. In Sweden, for example, we have national tests at three levels in the compulsory school, year 3, 6 and 9. And those tests the results of those tests are open to the schools to use in their improvement work, but they are also used at the national level. And then we have grades from year 6 up to grade 9. But the critical question here is the movement from teachers' individual learning towards a more collective learning in professional learning communities. So that's what is our interest mainly, to investigate how you reach these professional learning communities. Not only the individual teacher, but the teacher working in teams, learning in teams. The so-called instructional leadership seems to be connected to pupil or teacher learning more than transformational leadership, and there are similarities between these efforts to divide principles' work into some parts, but you can say that principles promoting and taking part in teacher learning, principals participates with the teachers in formal or informal professional learning. There you can see effects on teaching and, in the next step, student achievement. But this is rather new in Sweden, I think. This form of instructional leadership. Principals in Sweden are not used to step into the classroom and evaluate teachers' work or discuss teaching, because the teachers are historically rather autonomous. So, before I present some results from the ongoing research, I just want to stop with this concept, capital, learning capital. It's from the American researcher Lee and his wife Judith Schulman. They distinguish between 4 different aspects of the capital concepts. it's like types of learning qualities, you can say. Moral capital, to the will to perform in school improvement, the will to improve, the principles, ability to make visions for school improvement, and so on. The curricular capital, it's more like knowing what is my mission, what is my task as a teacher, for example, to know the curriculum, to know grading, to know formative assessment, and so on. The venture capital is to take risks, or to the willingness to change. You can take part in school improvement activities, but then when you have to do these in your daily practice, it's more difficult, I think. And this venture capital is a description of this. The teaching capital is more hands-on. It's what the teacher do in the classroom, trying to plan activities, conduct activities together with the pupils. And what our hypothesis is to see how these distinctions can make it possible to study and understand the local school-based improvement work. And it's interesting to see what forms of learning capitals emerge in schools and what form seems to be most important, and maybe why. We have used mainly qualitative methods here. We are going to collect also quantitative data on pupils' grade and national tests, but here I just present the results from the interviews with teachers and principals, and we have also sound recordings from planning meetings and so on, and a lot of documents from the schools. They are also required to make those improvements plans we have heard of today. So in Sweden, since I think 10 or 12 years, we have these requirements on schools to make quality plans for their schools. So when it comes to the selection of content areas, we can see in these 5 schools, they had a collaboration in between and with us as researchers, and we could see 2 broad areas was chosen as a focus: classroom management, or teacher leadership, you can say, development of language in all subjects. It's a big question in Sweden at the moment because of declining results in the Swedish subjects, but also in other subjects, due to problems for pupils to understand the concepts in the different subjects. So they work with this issue they call language in all subjects. And we also have a rather high level of immigrants in Sweden. I think that is also why this is chosen. But gradually, the need for specification become obvious in this when this school starts to work with the improvement plans. So they specify these with, for example, development of classroom questioning, classroom interaction between teacher and pupil, formative assessment, peer assessment, and so on. So when we talk to the school leaders, the principals here, they say this is important for us to make this specification. It makes it easier to be focused in the improvement work. And it also helps to motivate the teachers in the improvement work. And they felt successive development of confidence and in leading and organizing improvement work. We are going to, I'm going to meet these principles again now in May and June to talk to them about this 3-year process. But these results are after approximately 1.5 years or 2 years, but they talk about it's important to keep focus and communicate with the staff, connections between different activities, and also to observe the relations between the school's efforts, the teachers' efforts, and pupils' achievement. And like the principal here say, they use the staff and more strategic now than they did before. I use my development group more distinct, giving them tasks connected to these improvements efforts. They've been more focused, they say. And they also have now the courage to run long-term school development. And in Sweden, it's the municipalities. We have 219 municipalities. They have also some regulations and ideas of school improvement. And this principle tells us that in this project it has been important to keep the focus on long-term school improvement, because from the municipality it always comes new ideas, new improvement projects, and to say, no, we can't, we are in this project now, we have to improve, we have to focus. You're nodding here. So they also tell us the repertoire of improvement strategies had extended during the years, including collegial observations of teachers, pedagogical discussions, literature, reading, study circles between teachers, and that's important and interesting, especially in Sweden, I think, that the principals now is more frequent visitor in classrooms because the teachers have started to work in groups, 2 or 3 persons with collegial observations, and then the principals also do this because it's more open now to go into the classroom. We have done approximately 40 group interviews with teachers in these 5 schools, and they say that nowadays they have more pedagogical discussions, and the relationship between teaching and learning is more in focus now. And they also work with these observations, as I told you, but just in 4 or 5 schools. We can come back to that, but I think it has to do with the principal's strength and the culture in one of the schools. It's more difficult to introduce a strategy like this. But they also tell us, the teachers, that a common language about teaching and learning is growing, and you become more conscious about different teaching aspects. As you can see here, one teacher tells you get incredibly conscious of how you ask questions. Without collegial observations, you never had set eye on that. So they had got more confidence in testing teaching strategies connected to these content areas. One of the strategies, as I told you, was these observations, and this is not new, it's common all over the world, but I think in Sweden it has a renaissance at the moment because we have forgotten it, and we can see that what is important when using these strategies is a concrete and explicit focus on what is being observed, and related to this curriculum area, this improvement area that you have decided, And then it's enough with a short observation, but you need a documentation, a protocol, a videotape, or something for the reflection, to look yourself and to discuss with your colleague. And it's important with a short common reflection after the classroom observation. And then, in this case, in these 4 schools doing these religious observations, they had also a conversation with a moderator. Sometimes it was the researchers, like a person like me. Otherwise, it was a so-called first teacher or a vice principal or another supervisor from the municipality. But what was important there, approximately 1 week after the observation session, you had a conversation in 3 steps: description of observed situations, general knowledge and learnings from observations, and then an important thing, I think, pedagogical consequences. How do you use this information from the observation? You know something new about yourself. How are you going to use that in future teaching? So, back to these learning capital concepts. As we can see so far, now we are going to sum this up at the end of 2015, but at this moment we could see explicit changes of schools' so-called curricular capital in terms of discussions about teaching and learning from facts, from these observations and discussions, videotapes, literature, protocols, and curriculum. And we can also see changes of schools' teaching capital, more of collaborative learning through classroom observations and discussions. And what we so far can't see much of is this moral capital. It's starting to develop through the principles learning and development, but so there are more of common development, but the principles say to us there is still an ongoing negotiation with staff on what is the focus of our school improvement, and I have individual needs, and that is an ongoing discussion for the principals. And as I said, the venture capital, the change to taking risk, to getting the new activities into the daily teaching, that's the most difficult part in this phase of the improvement work, and it will be really interesting now. We're going to speak to the principals now in June, May, June, and then in the autumn we are going to talk to the teachers again to see what is left of these improvement activities and what consequences it has had for the daily teaching. So, at the end, some general insights from these. We have seen before, I haven't reported this here, we made a survey at the beginning and we are going to make a survey in the end of the project, but there are differences in the school's readiness for improvement, and there are differences in outcome too. So it takes time, and both principals and teachers' learning during the process is important. And like I said, the instructional leadership is rather new in a Swedish context. The principal haven't been so taking so active part in teaching development before. So, but also the importance of support in the process from municipality supervisors, first teachers, a new reform in Sweden, like 10% of teachers has got higher salaries. They are excellent teachers taking part in school improvement, but still being a teacher. And the need for conversations about teaching and learning, that's interesting also, I think. The teachers express this. There is a potential for learning in these discussions about teaching and learning. So, for the future, we are going to sum up these case studies and the principal's ability to deal with this balance, as I mentioned in the beginning, top-down initiatives and bottom-up initiatives and strategies. It's an important issue for the principal. And we have, maybe you can say this is a research and development design. It seemed to support principals' learning and leadership in the beginning. But what has happened when the researchers draw back, we don't know yet. It's really interesting to see that. But how can teachers learning from school improvement activities maintain and be part of daily teaching so we can move from teaching capital to venture capital and have a real school improvement that is important for student achievement. So, the school improvement learnings on a pupil level, we are going to look at that too. Teaching and learning in the classroom we have seen a lot of, but also these national tests and grade. Thank you very much.